I always believed my parents loved me, or at least cared enough to treat me fairly. But everything I thought I knew about them collapsed with just one phone call. It was a quiet afternoon. I was going through my day like normal when my phone rang. The number looked international, which already made my stomach twist a little. I answered, not knowing that my entire life was about to flip upside down. A calm voice on the other side said, "Mr. Anderson, this is the Swiss National Bank. We need to discuss an urgent matter regarding your inheritance account." At first, I thought it had to be some mistake. I had never touched that account. My grandfather opened it for me before he passed away. It was supposed to stay untouched until I was older. But then the banker continued, "There's an issue with the inheritance transfer your parents attempted. We need to verify some unusual activity." My heart stopped. Transfer? What transfer? I had never approved anything. The banker explained that my parents had recently tried to change the beneficiary, from me to someone else. And in that moment everything clicked. Their distance. Their cold tone. The feeling that I was slowly being pushed out of their lives. That call didn't just reveal a financial problem. It revealed the truth I had been avoiding for years. My parents had already replaced me with their new family. And they weren't just moving on. They were planning to erase my entire future too. Growing up as an only child should have felt special. But for me it always felt strangely quiet. There was this emotional distance in my house. Not loud, not abusive, just cold. My parents weren't cruel. They provided for me, they fed me, they sent me to school. But there was a kind of emptiness in the way they treated me. Like I was a responsibility, not a son. I got used to eating dinner alone. I got used to them being too busy to listen to my stories from school. I learned early that affection wasn't something I could expect from them. When I left for college, things got even worse. Weeks would pass without a single call from home. If I called them, the conversations were short and awkward. Like they were speaking to a stranger, not their own child. And then one day, completely out of nowhere, they called to tell me they had adopted 2 children from overseas. I remember the exact words my mother used. "You'll be their big brother," she said almost proudly. But something inside me tightened. Her tone wasn't excited, it was relieved. Relieved to finally have a better version of a family. I congratulated them, but deep inside, I knew the truth that no one said out loud. I hadn't gained siblings. I had been replaced, pushed a step lower, turned into a background character in my own home. In that moment, I felt myself being quietly demoted in my own family. At first, I tried to be positive about everything. New siblings, a new chapter. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it felt. But the red flags showed up quicker than I expected. My parents suddenly became warmer. But not toward me. All their attention, their energy, their time. It was poured into the new kids. Every phone call I made went unanswered for days. And when they finally picked up, they barely asked how I was doing. It was always, "Let me call you back, we're busy with the little ones." But that call never came. Family trips that I used to join quietly stopped including me. I'd see pictures online. Smiling faces, matching outfits, vacations I didn't even know about. They looked like the perfect family. And I wasn't part of the picture anymore. One day my mother said something that hit me harder than she realized. She didn't say it to hurt me. It just slipped out. She said, "They deserve stability, something we couldn't really give you when you were growing up." I don't think she knew how painful that sounded. As if my entire childhood had been a mistake. As if I had been some practice round before they found the children they truly wanted. I tried to brush it off. Told myself I was overthinking. But deep down I knew something was shifting. And I wasn't just losing my place in the family. I was being quietly pushed out. Months passed and I tried to distance myself from the situation. I focused on work, on my own life. Telling myself that maybe I was imagining things. Then one afternoon I received a strange email from the Swiss bank. The same bank where my grandfather had opened an inheritance account for me. I had never touched that money. I wasn't even supposed to access it yet. So getting a message from them felt unusual. The email didn't explain much. It simply said there was important activity related to my account. And that I needed to call them immediately. When I called, the tone of the banker's voice told me everything. Something was wrong. He said, "Mr. __, we've received a request to change the beneficiary on your inheritance account." I froze. A request? From who? He continued. "The documents were submitted under your parents' authority. They claim the account needs to be reassigned. My heart started beating faster. Reassigned to whom? When I asked, the banker hesitated for a moment, and then gave me the names of the new children my parents had adopted. I felt the air leave my chest. My parents weren't just drifting away from me emotionally. They were taking steps to rewrite my entire future. The inheritance my grandfather had saved for me. The money he trusted them to protect. They were secretly trying to give it to someone else. In that moment I realized the truth. This wasn't just neglect. This wasn't just favoritism. This was betrayal. A deep, planned, deliberate betrayal. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it felt like to be treated as if I didn't exist. As the banker explained more, things went from shocking to disturbing. He told me the bank had run its routine checks on the transfer request. And that's when they noticed several inconsistencies. First, the signatures on the documents didn't match the ones my parents had on file. They were similar, but not exact. Someone had traced or modified them badly. Second, the documents were marked as urgent, even though no one had given a reason. The banker said the request was pushed through unusually fast, almost as if someone wanted it approved before questions were asked. And third, the biggest red flag of all, the bank had tried calling me multiple times to confirm the change, but someone had listed a different number under my name. A number that definitely wasn't mine. That's when the banker's tone changed. He went from formal to concerned. He asked, "Mr. Underscore, are you aware of these changes? Did you authorize any part of this?" I told him no. Absolutely not. There was a long silence on the line. Then he said the words that made me realize how serious this was. "We are temporarily freezing the request. We need you to come in as soon as possible. Something about this situation doesn't look right." In that moment, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about money. This was about trust. About the truth behind my parents' actions. About how far they were willing to go to remove me from their lives. And now, even the Swiss bank suspected it. I drove to my parents' house with a tightness in my chest. I wasn't angry at first, just confused, hurt, desperate for an explanation. But the moment I walked in, I realized they weren't surprised to see me. It was almost like they had been expecting this. I asked them directly about the inheritance transfer. No softening, no excuses, just the truth I needed to hear. My father didn't even hesitate. He said, "We thought the money would be better used for the new children. They need us more than you do." His voice was calm, almost businesslike. My mother added, "You're grown now. You're independent. You don't need that inheritance." Their words hit harder than anything I'd ever heard. They weren't just taking the money. They were admitting it openly without guilt, as if erasing me from the family was a practical decision. In that moment, I understood I was no longer their priority, and maybe never had been. When I arrived at the Swiss bank, I was nervous and exhausted. But the moment I sat down with the senior officer, everything changed. He slid a folder toward me and said, "Your grandfather anticipated situations like this. He left instructions we were required to follow." Inside the folder was something I had never known existed. A hidden clause written by my grandfather himself. The inheritance could never be transferred by anyone except me. No signatures, no parental approval, no legal tricks. Only my direct biometric confirmation. The officer explained that my parents' request was automatically flagged, because it broke every rule the account was built on. Their entire plan collapsed right there. For the first time in this whole nightmare, I felt protected. Not by my parents, but by the man who had believed in me long before I understood what family truly meant. When the bank officially denied the transfer, my parents reacted exactly how I feared. They didn't ask if I was okay. They didn't even try to explain themselves. Instead, they blamed me. My father said I was selfish for not letting the money go. My mother accused me of ruining the future of the real family. Those words cut deeper than anything else. Real family. As if I had never been part of them at all. Their new children stood quietly in the background. Confused, innocent, unaware of what was happening. This wasn't their fault. But my parents' coldness made it impossible to ignore the truth anymore. I realized I had been trying to hold on to a bond that only existed in my imagination. So I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I simply walked away. Not out of anger, but because I finally understood I deserved better than being an outsider in my own home. A few weeks after everything happened, I received another call from the Swiss bank. For a moment I feared something else had gone wrong. But this time the tone was different. Calm, almost reassuring. The officer explained that because my parents had attempted a fraudulent transfer, the account had been reviewed under special protocols. During that review, the bank confirmed every detail my grandfather had set up, and determined I was the rightful and only legal beneficiary. Then he told me something I never expected. I had a choice. I could keep the account sealed until I turned 35, or I could access a controlled portion immediately, enough to give me a stable start in life. It felt unreal. After all the pain, all the betrayal, there was still justice. Not from my parents, but from a grandfather who had protected me even after he was gone. It was the first time in months I felt hope again. I decided to take control of my life on my own terms. I didn't want to hold on to anger, but I also didn't want to let anyone dictate my future. With the funds I could access, I started building something I had always dreamed of. A business that reflected who I was, not what anyone else expected me to be. Every step I took felt like reclaiming a part of myself that had been quietly pushed aside for years. For the first time I felt chosen, not by my parents, but by the one person who had truly believed in me, my grandfather. As for my parents, they remain a distant chapter in my story. I don't dwell on the betrayal anymore. I've created a life where I am seen, valued, and free. And that freedom feels more like inheritance than any bank account ever could. Sometimes the people we expect to protect us are the ones who hurt us the most. My parents weren't just distant, they tried to erase me from the life I was meant to have. It was painful, unfair, and completely beyond my control. But betrayal doesn't define who we are. It doesn't decide our future. What matters is how we respond, how we rise after being knocked down, and how we protect ourselves when others fail to. In the end, my grandfather's foresight saved me. His protection reminded me that family isn't just blood. It's trust, love, and care that endure even when others fail. I learned to let go of resentment and focus on what truly matters. My life, my choices, and my future. Sometimes justice comes quietly, unexpectedly, and often from those we least expect. And that's the inheritance that truly matters.